Hey, welcome everybody. It's Jeff Keithley. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Jack. We've met, about 4 or 5 years ago. I guess it was around COVID times. And Jack ran into a little bit of a challenge this weekend. So we're going to start off with helping Jack. Jack, tell us about your challenge.
Well, so this past weekend was the Overland Expo West here in Flagstaff, Arizona. And so I was out there at the expo all ready to stream it up and go out and meet vendors and talk and, bring the show to the live audience. And something bit me in the butt. I was sending SRT LA to a machine back in my house in Phoenix, and that machine decided that it wanted to go to sleep. So it went to sleep. I was not able to get it awoke remotely, and I had to pivot. So
Okay.
that's what happened.
So what did you do to pivot? That's a pretty big pivot.
So I was running BellaBox, and BellaBox is an encoder that works off of Linux. If you're a fan of Office Hours, you might have seen some of the behind the scenes coverage at NAB. And one of the guys there was streaming with BellaBox. So I was super excited to test it out. I did a couple of tests before the event, and the BellaBox performed admirably, right? Like it was awesome. It's a great little open source encoder. Super, super cool, right? But
Okay.
if your PC is not awake, it cannot receive the signal. So that was when I had to pivot to doing the unthinkable, installing OBS on a Mac, and then asking it to send a video feed to YouTube. But it did the job. Whether or not I'll say it did it amazingly well, that's questionable.
Okay.
But it worked. We've got videos up.
Okay. All right. But at least you got to air, right? So
We got to air.
you got to air. Sometimes people lose sight of that. It's like, oh, this is going wrong. Like, but you're on the air. Okay. So in the BellaBox implementation, was it streaming direct? Why were you going through the computer part itself?
So, it's a show. And so I had media queued up. I had pre-rolls, I had graphics, things like that. They were all queued up in my vMix that was running off of my internet connection back in Phoenix. And I have a gigabit Ethernet connection at my home, and I had a much actually Starlink was getting like 300 meg down and like 40 meg up. And
Wait, out there?
Out there, out in the boonies, out in the pine
Nice.
trees,
Oh, nice.
I was getting a really great signal. I was impressed.
Oh, wait. So let's recap. Where was because I forgot to look, and I know it was this past weekend. We had a great time one time together. It was like 3 years ago, I guess it was, right?
Yeah.
2 or 3. So where was Overland Expo this year?
So Overland Expo is at the Fort Tuthill Fairgrounds. There you go.
Okay.
And so it's in the pine trees, but they do have a parking lot.
Is this the same place?
Same location, exactly where you were.
So this was the same one. Okay.
Same
Yeah,
situation.
there was nothing out there.
Yeah. And the thing is, you get a bunch of your friends who show up, and so cellular bogs down a lot.
Right.
And so I run a combination of I this year I used the MRNet router alongside a Starlink.
Okay, for those that don't know, the Mr. Net router is also a partnership with a good friend of ours, Keaton, right? So, and he's doing well with his disaster
group.
Disaster group. I knew it was a disaster, whatever. But he's actually done very well with it.
Yeah.
So it's running, the Mr. Net is running, it's a version of Speedify. Is that right?
So it's got three bonded cellular modems,
Okay.
and then it bonds with the Starlink as well. So it can bring in WAN, and then all that good stuff, and it bonds it all together and works pretty well.
And you were getting 300 you were getting 300 down whenever you were
Just the Starlink.
just with the Starlink though.
Just with the
Oh
Starlink.
wow.
So with Starlink, Starlink started doing a new thing, and I say they started doing a new thing. I've had mine off for about
Mm,
a year. So
yeah,
maybe this
can
was six
relate.
months ago. Maybe this was 6 months ago. I don't know. But they started doing a thing where you can pay a little bit more and have priority connection. And so
I've run
I
into the same thing. Yes, yes.
so I did that because the last time I used my device and I wasn't on priority, my network connection was pretty garbage.
Mm,
And I was not impressed. So this year I was like, all right, let me see if this is better. And if it is, I'll keep it this way. And it was markedly better. Still not something I would use on paid work for streaming, just being, true
mm,
and out there.
okay,
It still stuttered a little. It still stuttered, but for enthusiast stuff, like it's great. But for paid work, no, I'd look for another solution.
okay. Is were you seeing like a breakdown in like were you able to see the other side? Were you able to see the output while you were out there so you could see what the return was coming back? And were you seeing it breaking and stuttering and stuff? There's somebody that we both know that is now off the train and is like they're the devil. Uh, but I haven't seen that whenever we've done the hits and stuff with the Starlinks ourselves. But we're also a lot of times we were bonding it, so we weren't using just a Starlink.
Yeah. I wasn't monitoring, I'll be honest. I wasn't monitoring because unfortunately I was the talent. So I did a one
I know
minute
this.
I did a 1 minute pre-roll, minute 15 actually. Did a minute 15 pre-roll so that I could start the stream and then go join the guest. And then I had a guy monitoring, my buddy John was monitoring,
Okay.
and he would let us know when we were live.
So was
But
he offsite? Was he like away when he was monitoring, or was he
yeah,
out
he's
there
10
at
feet
the?
away. He
Oh,
was
he
there.
was,
Yeah, we had a 3-person team this year
okay.
that did it. It was fun. We had a cameraman, Andrew Baker. He's a good
Oh,
buddy of mine.
nice.
He's been working on the documentary with me.
Cool.
And same thing with John Good, Johnny Be Good. He's a producer for us on the
Uh,
documentary as well. So
all
yeah,
right. So you had somebody on site that was sucking up your bandwidth, or not really because it was down versus upload, right? So whenever you, but did you have your wife with you?
not this year. Not this year. I did Ever With Me 2 years ago when
Okay.
we saw each other there. Yeah.
Did you have her restart the computer?
No, no.
No,
That was not. I was
not an
like, you know
option
what?
at the
I don't
time.
know. I don't know what's going on here.
Okay.
And I thought I'd lost power.
Ah,
So initially I just thought that it had lost power and because we've been having a lot of work done in the space. And
mm,
so I was like, oh, it's just power. It'll be back up. And then it never came back up.
right.
And then I was like, okay, why isn't it coming up? And then why are other computers on the network available,
Mm,
but that one isn't?
right.
So I was like, oh.
What was your choice for remote to be able to get into the computer so you know if it was online or not?
Parsec. So
Parsec.
that's one of the
Okay.
things I wonder about is would another service have done a wake on LAN better?
Let
Because
me
when I
tell you about
got
a friend
back
of
here,
mine.
yeah, what you got?
Yes, Splashtop. Yes, if your computer is set up correctly, you can use Splashtop to do a wake online. And so you could go into, the business app is what you install on the machine. You're controlling the remote machines. The remote machines have a little piece of software on it called Streamer. And you could actually tell it from the business app, right click on it, go wake. And you can send it multiple times and things. And so that was a reason I was asking. If it was truly asleep, that's one thing. Now, Wake on Land is fickle in its own way. So you don't always have that ability for it to work, but you should, if you have everything configured right, you should be able to use that. And it's actually more affordable than Parsec in the longer run.
Well, Parsec didn't work this time, so if the
Might look
if
for
the
something else.
costs, yeah, because I don't pay for Parsec, so it's
Oh,
free,
okay.
but
So it's the free version. Okay, gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
Splashtop is very affordable though. I mean, compared to anything is affordable after you've been shackled to the TeamViewer train for
uh,
years, as I was, and I was paying $8,000 and $9,000 a year for 100 machines that I was managing or whatever I had in my list, and the multiple users and all. So it was a means to an end at the time. Done. And I got out of it as fast as I could and went to other things. I've used Rust is another product that's a very similar type of implementation. Also, the other one was desktop. What was it? Not Rust. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the other one that we use. I just don't use it that much, so I don't use it anymore. I've just went really all in on Splashtop, and I've been actually with Splashtop for probably 10 plus years. Used them way back in the back, and then I just stopped using them. I still had a license, and when I went back to them, I was like, well, let me just add more, and so I just kept adding more users. You get, like, if you sign up, you get 10 computers per person of your licenses. And so I have like 10 now. So, because I have so many computers spread out everywhere, but that's also, I've got like 30 computers are part of the Sage Studio that we control for Blue. So that's just, those stay logged in all the time. And anytime I need, matter of fact, he called me this morning to help him with one of his servers. So that's just an easy thing for me. But yeah, I highly recommend the Splashtop for remote control now. I used to be all in on TeamViewer, but they just got to be so pricey over a period of time. All right, so back to your challenge. The other thing too is you need to make sure of on your computers, because as you said that, it's like you're wondering if it powered back up and you lost power, and then when you got power back, did just not power up. I found out, and I've got to do it on my MSO1s here, but I found out on the truck we were working with last weekend, they lost power. They actually had a trip light UPS. But just talking about power, we could talk about this for all hours. They had a trip light UPS that I've already changed out all the batteries on that. We touched on this the last show. You have to take the whole thing out of the rack, take off one of the ears, then take off the end to put the batteries inside, to swap out the batteries. It's the stupidest design ever. Plastic shell and everything. Trip light, you suck. I'll say it out loud. The one of those, which is probably maybe 2-3 years old as a UPS, it was running fine, show's going great, click, died. Just totally lost its brain, turned off. It wasn't a beep, it wasn't nothing, it was just dark. And so at that time, I was remoting in, and the MSO1s that I was using to control the audio and do other mixing, that's where I lost them. And sure enough, they didn't have the wake on land, not wake on land, but wake on power restored setting. So I had to get them on the phone, and everything's going crazy in the truck at the time, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
So I called him. I said, "Hey, press the button. Just please press
turn the thing on."
Right. And then I can log into this, because as soon as it comes up to the login screen, it gives me the Windows login screen. I could go right into it. These are Windows 11 boxes. All my Windows 10 boxes go straight to the desktop. I have them programmed to do that. I have not figured that out. I need to break down and figure that out. If I could do that to log in without password, with log in without prompt on a Windows 11 box. I just haven't done it yet. But that's what I need to do. It also need to go in the settings and tell it on power restore boot. Just please, just do with that. So I understand the pain of what you're in, because I was dead in the water here. I was like, I couldn't do anything at all. I couldn't help. It's just like, please just turn on my machine, please. Whenever I've had this same situation kind of happen, whenever we lost power here, years ago, we've had a Unity server sitting in the back, and it's just the only Mac I use in production. And so I would have to tell my wife from time to time, hey, until I reset its power settings, hey, my wife is Lisa, please go back there, press the button on the silver thing. And then it would be a 5 or 10 minute phone call. And it always came with, okay, now you owe me, so whenever those kind of things happen, it's good to have somebody back on. That's why I asked if your wife was back there to press the on button and you're trying to talk them through it. My friend that lives in Phoenix also, Joe Pashley, he was also been in a similar situation. Because like, I was off site, but my wife was with the kids, and she, I thought, wow, what could happen for her stepping away for an hour? But yeah, stuff happens always. All right. So you got up and streaming but you just didn't have all the. Were you streaming direct at that time, so you weren't bouncing SRT through the server? Okay.
Correct. So I had to rebuild the show, which was
Oh,
super fun. So we did a live stream with just kind of quick and dirty, just went immediately live, right? Like I had my guy pan at the logo, he showed the logo, we saw the logo, and then we're like live. So
okay.
that was the first one. And then after that, because we had, you make appointments with vendors so you can talk to them. And so you're like, hey, I'm going to show up at this time and then we'll go on live at this time and blah, blah, blah. Right. So we were all prepared. And the thing that drove me crazy was that it's not like it had fallen asleep overnight. I had it there. I could see picture, I could see image. I was ready to go. And
Oh,
then something happened. And when we came back, it's not there. It's not in Parsec. I can't open it, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that was super frustrating. But like I said, I just went in, installed OBS on a Mac, which, not supposed to do. And it did work. It did function
hmm,
ish. There's data online, right? Like it's not as good as what I've been doing.
right.
I'll acknowledge it. It didn't look as good, and it sent 720/60. I was like, why'd you send 720/60? Like I would have taken 720/30. That makes sense, but 1080/30 is what I really
Wait,
wanted.
but was it 720p? So 5994, and they just round up to 60 or call it 60. Like I've
That's
seen a
that's
lot of
what
people.
the that's what it's set. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I don't know. I'm not super into OBS. I've been using
Yeah.
vMix to do all my stuff and that's kind of where I live. But
Gotcha.
I guess I'm breaking out now.
Yeah, you're multi-talented now, and that's the whole thing about necessity, right? Is we get to be multi-talented when necessity says we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree there. What about whenever you were doing your initial pre-production and stuff like that, and your tests with that machine, did it have any problems or exhibit any problems or anything
It
like
it
that?
was beautiful. It was amazing. Like
Okay.
I'm assuming so I did software updates on like Tuesday
Hmm.
and then that event where it failed was Friday.
Oh,
So
with
it
all
was
that
multiple
time, by
days.
you had all the time in the world then, right? For everything to
That's what I
break.
feel like. That's what I felt like. I was like, "Oh man, I was with the machine until for all of Wednesday. I used it on Wednesday. That's the other thing.
Okay.
That's what drives me crazy. I
Yeah.
used it Wednesday to do another stream from our veteran space that I
Hmm.
do a lot of stuff
Hmm.
out of, and it worked. No issues for that show. But I don't know.
Wow.
Things just want to break when they want to break.
Yeah. Yeah. No, without a doubt. I could definitely relate to that.
We
Um,
say Murphy was
so
a filmmaker.
yes, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Murphy. I know him well. He's been a long time friend. What about whenever you were thinking about this? Um, and you mentioned to me before we started talking about this a little bit, that you wanted to talk a little bit, learn a little bit about cloud. So the advantage of that would be, yes, I mean, it's still a computer. It could shut down or it could crash or something like that, but you could also have the ability to have at least backup with another machine running alongside it or in a different location or something of that nature. Um, so you're ready to think about that now. You're ready to think about alternatives.
Yeah, so I did decide today that I'm going to just duplicate the project and then do a little rsync situation
Mhm.
so that I have a folder, a directory where I save all of my presets for vmix.
Okay.
And so now I'm pushing those to my Lucid Link so that whenever they're there, they're just there. And then I've
Right.
got Lucid Link on all my production equipment. And then the goal is I'm gonna do a push from my main vmix machine and then have a secondary vmix that's at a different location at the veteran center actually.
Okay.
And then I'll be able to do I've got A B options,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
all my settings are on Lucid, which means they're always up to date whenever I work on them.
That's
So
a good
yeah,
idea. So
yeah.
I actually don't use Lucid, so I kind of do a similar workflow using Google Drive. So I'll save things that need to be updated or shared across multiple machines over Google Drives. but you would be able to do the same thing in the except sending the signal. So you would probably want to also will need to look at something like either bouncing it through a Sienna processing engine like we have, or High Vision, where you're sending one SRT to the gateway and then you're branching from that gateway out to two different destinations for true redundancy. Otherwise, your SRT is just going to be to that one machine and you would have to redirect it to the secondary machine.
And I should mention, I'm also using BellaBox Cloud. So
Oh,
BellaBox is the OS,
okay.
right? So it's a flavor of Ubuntu or something Debian based, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
And so it's Linux, which then pushes up to your choice, right? You can either send an SRT feed, SRT LA feed to another encoder or something of that nature, or you can send it to the cloud, which is what I've chosen to do. They have their own SRT box machine, whatever,
okay.
that receives the feed and then spits out SRT
Okay.
instead of SRTLA. And then so it takes the SRTLA, turns it into SRT, and then you can bring that in to anything that can take in SRT.
Can you send out two feeds from that Velobox cloud? Can you send out simultaneously two separate destinations?
Let me look.
Because that would solve your problem. Then you just need to be able to get that into both the switchers, both the primary and the backup switcher at that point.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, I think I might figure that out. Somebody who knows more about BellaBox can definitely answer that question.
That's
I've
not
only
me.
been using it for about a month, so
That's a month more than me. Okay.
yeah. No, and it works. Look, it works
Yeah.
great, right? Like I've been sending 2K video to YouTube through BellaBox for the last 3 shows that we did at our veteran space, and it does a great job. And what I
Oh,
do is I literally, for that one, I don't even use the MRNet router. For that one, I use the veteran spaces wired internet,
okay.
which is not amazing. It's, I think there's QoS on it because I'm only getting like 100 down and like, what am I getting, like 34 up. And
It's
so
either QoS or a really 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 old switch somewhere that you're connected to.
I have a feeling. I have a feeling that's what it is
Yeah.
because yeah, because it's, you know, this is a nonprofit,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's not a lot of funding that's gone into it.
Yeah. There's
But
a Linksys switch somewhere in there.
totally, totally, there is absolutely. So yeah, so the Bella Box stuff is pretty cool. It looks good. Like I was super excited for it, and it was working. That was
Yeah.
my favorite
That's
part,
cool.
was that I had it set up on. So we had an FX6 as our
I was about
ACAM.
to ask how many cameras and how did you have it set up?
Yeah, so we had the FX6 with a Bella box that was rail mounted. And let me see if I took a picture of that because that's
Now,
pretty cool.
let's clarify rail mounted in both our worlds. Rail to me means it's like on a slider and it can move back and forth. I know what world
Rod
you come
mounted.
from. So, rail mounted in Jack world. What is that?
No, and you're thinking I'm talking about military applications,
I
but
do.
I'm
I was
not
like,
talking about
you've got a
military
rail
applications.
mounted camera? What?
Well, it's got NATO mounts. Yes.
That's true.
But no, it was rods. I should have said
Okay.
rods, 15 millimeter rods.
Okay.
So yeah, so I've got it on there, and it's on the back, and it just sits, and it's perfect because I have like a little 6-inch jumper, USB-C jumper
Okay.
that powers it. So it was all being powered off a V mount, and I was really happy with the way everything was working out because it was just one unit, and then I could monitor the stream with my laptop. That's what my laptop was
Okay.
there for initially, and I just happened to bring extra capture cards, and so
You
that
didn't
was how
happen to bring, you planned ahead. That's without even thinking about it. You planned ahead a little bit.
I liked having the idea for me was, I was like, well, I'm going to bring these capture cards because maybe I will want to do a multicam,
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't initially planning a multicam for the streams.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, maybe if I get into a situation where we're having like a long panel, then maybe I am going to want a multicam.
Right.
So we had, like I said, we were on the FX6 and an FX30 and an A7 IV. So these are all Sony
Right.
full. Well, FX30 is not full frame, but yeah, the
Good
other two
stuff.
are. Yeah, yeah, nice glass. We're going a little crazy. We're using Russian lenses, the Helios M42 58 millimeter. We love the bokeh on it. It's
Mm.
beautiful. It's old glass. It's like $150, like
Oh,
super
that's
cheap
cool.
lens, but it looks beautiful. Yeah, totally worth checking out. Look at vintage lenses if you want to find one. I ordered mine out of Ukraine. I love the fact that you can still find this just all over the place, and it's a great piece of classic glass.
That's interesting. I haven't updated my setup here in quite a while, and I wanted to tell you I like your look that you have right now. It's cool. I like it. It's got a nice feel to it and everything. And I need to I need to work on my set here a little bit. When I was doing the demos a couple of weeks ago, I did them over here on the side in our master control room because I needed more monitors and stuff than what I have here on my desk. But I'm starting to get the itch a little bit to improve. This is a 1 inch sensor on a box lens, our box camera made by Bolin. So same company that used to make the cameras for Bird Dog, and I've had it for quite a while. It's 4K camera and everything, but it only does 30, not 20, not 5994. So I don't use it for sports, but it does have a decent picture. But I just find at times it doesn't have quite the look I want as we're improving. It's that I can't keep up with the jacks of things and other people. But so
Well,
back to your dilemma. What about audio? What did you do? Audio into the camera, and so you're embedded into the camera, then you're sending it out. So you kept it to a pretty tight, small package because I saw, what was it, last year, where you had this huge cart and you rolled around and it was being pulled by a tank and all that stuff.
so I did bring the cart actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a blast with that cart. The beauty of it is we get all day power, right? So
And
everybody
how are you doing the power? Again, that's lithium batteries. Is that right?
so this was an EcoFlow this year. This
Oh,
year we had a conversation with EcoFlow and we got them to power us. So
nice.
yeah. So we had a nice EcoFlow Pro. I don't remember the exact model number, but it was great. We were able to charge it. We never got below 50% with the solar.
Mm.
And then we were able to get it charged up pretty quickly whenever we take a stop into the media room. So
Wait,
we were
the solar, you're saying you were
on the
using it, but
cart.
you were charging it by solar at the same time because
Hmm.
this is outdoors, right? So,
Yep, yep.
all right. So when you're charging with the solar, you were still consuming more than what the solar was actually putting out.
Yeah, so the panels that they had for this one were 100 watts,
Okay.
and so we're not really gonna get you never get 100%, right? Like if
Right.
you're out in the middle of nowhere, there's no tree coverage, and you're in Arizona, you can get 100 watts.
Right.
You can get 98 watts, you can get 96 watts, right? But like when you're walking amongst pine trees and everybody's
Nothing's
got
direct.
banners and tall vehicles, there's no direct light, and so then at that point you're very happy when you get 50 watts.
Okay.
And so that was where we were at. We were drawing more than 50 watts, even though we were putting in 50, we were drawing up to 90. And so
What all did you have plugged into your cart that was drawing so much? I mean, a camera shouldn't have been pulling that much, huh?
camera was powered by V mounts, so the
Okay.
camera had no draw at all.
Was it the
So
microwave or the espresso maker or what?
it was the Starlink,
Oh,
the
we
Starlink on a
forget about that.
mast.
Okay.
Yeah. Starlink does a really, really poor job of converting 12 volts
And
to 120.
Which Starlink was it? The mini
Gen
or full
2,
size?
the
Oh,
Gen 2.
oh. So you had to have a 110.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You had the little box because I have Gen 2, so I actually just sold my second one.
I've
Um,
never converted it to the
okay,
12-volt system. If once you do that, it becomes much more manageable
right.
and it's not as dramatic. But when you're stuck on that 120, that modem and the Starlink itself use a lot of juice. So that's
Yeah,
where most of it
that's
went.
okay. That makes a lot more sense than of that kind of draw. I could relate to that. I moved to the mini, and we use that for majority of everything, and because we're just using it for occasional internet at the most part now. But when we're using the internet, using it for actual production stuff, we were using the bigger dishes. And I'm looking at getting a bigger dish for some events coming up, but I want to get into the new ones. That's why I sold one of my old ones like that, because the new ones they're just easier. You could power them over PoE, standard PoE, or just give it a straight 12 volts instead of having to power it over that crazy USB
That's
C
awesome.
junk. Yeah. So after you were out there and you were running and everything, did you find that, I mean, your production level, you were still getting the content back, you were still able to do everything well, not everything you want to do, but you were able to rebuild the system. So having a system that's a duplicate would have been a great boon at that time, or the ability to spin it up and say, you have it up and just have it in your back pocket, and oh, I need to turn it on, and then redirect your source to it at that point. Would be probably the biggest thing you'd want to do.
Yeah.
All right, we can help with that. That's not a problem. It's easy. It really is. And honestly, to get started, I mean, to get started in cloud, it's not so much of building it out. I mean, it is a part of building and building out, but you do have to have a kind of a relationship with Amazon, and you start that, you give them the keys, you give them a card. It doesn't really cost you if it's just sitting there. And when I say really, I mean, there may be cents, maybe a few bucks a month or something like that, but it's not like it's not going to cost you $100 a month to use something, but you could always have it there as backup. The challenge, I think, is going to be is to remember, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that in order to get to the backup, unless you use it often. Or bigger events like this that you're going out, you just test on Tuesday, Wednesday, set it
Mhm.
up, power it down, and then you just know you got it in your back pocket at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some sort of freak situation because I did so much testing before I left. And I'm like, I really don't know what Windows decided it wanted to do, but it became inaccessible. And then when I came back, I was like, I went to mess with it. I thought I had to turn it on, and I saw the indicator lights, and I'm like, but you're on. What are you doing to me?
I have you actually, and this has happened to me. I on one of our Dells, our 3930s, which are the 1U encoders, that we use them as encoders for years, and we've had those computers as workstations for quite a while now. So we have like 10 or 12 of them. I think we get 10 now, but anyway, on those, there's two of them that every once in a while the 10 gig NIC just goes offline, and it just says, no, I'm not here. So of course, if that's what you're remoting into, it's not there. But then when you go back and look at the rack, it's like it's blinking, it's doing all the things a computer that's running should do. Most of ours are headless now. We're remoting into them to get the via NDI KVM actually here around the office. But at the time, that was one of the things too. Of course, if the network isn't working, you can't NDI KVM into it either. So that would be another thing to look at, is make sure that the NIC didn't just say the driver, or it just itself said, no, I don't want to be here anymore. Or the cable. That's another thing too.
You're saying like a video cable, like an
Network.
HDMI
Network cable.
network cable? Okay.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't no indicators of rats.
Yeah. Rats, kids, whatever. Yeah. It's just weird sometimes. It just a quarter of an inch, it looks like it's plugged in, but just a quarter of an inch, an eighth of an inch, even that may have been pulled out or tugged on as things were getting moved around or something like that. That would have just been faulty enough to be able to fail the network connection. Of course, no network connection knows that. Now, the other thing too is these Dells, we have workstations, they have two NICs. And for a long time, we were not doing any kind of internet on our Dante at all. So our Dante VLAN was completely virgin, and it just completely isolated from everything else, and we didn't allow it to go through the gateway. I eventually changed that. My original network engineer that was working for me that's the way he wanted to set up. I let him go with it. Eventually, I changed that so that if that after a NIC died and we had that problem, if we have that second NIC in there, I still at least can remote in the machine and diagnose that, okay, there's another problem somewhere else if I can't see it from that specific one. So there's another advantage. That's another thing you might think about doing, is just throwing a USB NIC on there. USB-A is even fast enough just to be able to connect to your network and have a second NIC also on it. That's just an idea. Always the little things, right?
Yeah, yeah. This motherboard has 2 NICs, but if you're gonna have a failure in one, you might have a failure in the other. So yeah, maybe go through a different path.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But at least having two, you eliminate some of the hardware possibilities of it being a layer issue that where it's a cable, or a single cable or something like that. But always, every one of my machines have at least 2 NICs in them. So some of them 3, 4, 10, whatever. We keep
I think that's
more,
called a router.
huh?
I think that's called a router or a switch.
Yeah, well,
once you got that many
is.
NICs.
Yeah, I have one box in the truck or the van that we had, that I think we had 6 NICs in it, because I had one on each one. But before Brandon started working for me, we had a NIC on each individual VLAN, and that one computer could talk to every machine in every possible combination. So that was the old way of doing it. Now it's all trunked on one cable, and I still have 2. I still have a Dante and a Works production network, but he's helped the routing side of that. But yeah, those are things too. All right, so Jack, we have a question from Tommy. He's asking, were you encoding in H.264 on the Bella box or 265?
I'll take a look at my settings. I think it would have been 265, but I need to look at the Bella box before I actually answer that.
And also, Mickey, our mutual friend there, said that a railgun mounted camera would be interesting, without a doubt.
And I do have mounts for that, and I have done that, and it is fun.
So while you're looking up that on the Bella box, my son Jarrett, he went out and did one of these overnight sims or weekend sims up in Oklahoma. This was Easter weekend, actually, and he was out there, and he got to learn and rough it a little bit with about 400 or 500 other people in the middle of a tornado infested area. Let's just say, yeah, good times was not part of it, because they had a breakdown of communication, to say the least. Didn't know what to do, didn't have procedures in place. And we've got video because he's my son. He's prepared to take video. And there was a whole lot of shenanigans going on that he revealed later that Mom's never seen and never will. Ever.
Oh, dude.
So what did you figure out? 265? I mean,
yeah,
you save a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah.
Okay.
265.
That makes sense. Any other questions? Anybody watching? We'll go ahead and fire them away. This is good information to know. I want to look in the Bella box a little. I want to see. I have actually no use at all for the what is the one by Magewell? I can't remember the name of it. Director.
Interesting.
I just don't see that in my application, but I know there are people out there using them, and I guess they have a place, and for me it's not, but we're doing different stuff and bigger stuff, maybe not enough inputs, whatever. But it's fascinating to see something in this little computer case that's this big that can do so much. That's just amazing. I wish we could shrink some other things down to that kind of size where you can do 4 inputs and video switching with graphics. And now what did they add? Like instant replay of some sort too. I was like, good Lord, this is just crazy. All right. Yeah. So, I think we've kind of crossed over the bridge of a solution. Yeah, a cloud server would have been really handy for you to have that. I wish you would have reached out in between my remote mixing that I was doing here, in between the times so the computer was off or on, depending. I could have given you a hand. I would have glad to, because we've got resources here just running. And that's what I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, just kind of to touch on some things that we just had a nice little breakthrough on, I guess you would say. Yesterday we've been working on this for quite a while, and we're using a open source of sorts hypervisor. So we're virtualizing VMs, and we were doing this first in the for all the Zoom meetings that we were having to host in the cloud. Well, we were doing it in our own, I guess call it our private cloud, right? And so the hosting of all that was going really well. There's not a whole lot of need in a Zoom meeting as far as like things like I don't need I don't need GPU access, for instance, in a Zoom meeting for it just to run. So I kept pushing on it. We kept working on it a little bit, and finally they opened up and updated the software layer that we're using to do the hypervisor and all. And now it allows us to add a GPU into it. And so we finally saw that yesterday, and after doing the update, and I added it in. And so now without any real major pain or anything like that, I have the ability to run, I'm running Vector, so a TriCaster equivalent. I'm running that in a virtual machine on our hardware alongside like 6 other virtual machines that are all running on the same hardware. And it's all running in a 2U rack. Now, it's a 2U really long rack because it's a big Dell server. So the processing itself, the processors themselves has dual EPYC. So the AMD EPYC core, and it's got 64 cores per EPYC. So a total of 128 cores, 512 gigs of RAM, I think is what we crammed in it. And then we could put a whole bunch of hard drives in it, like 2.5-inch hard drives, and do RAIDs and things. We didn't fill it up yet because we've got over a petabyte, or a half a petabyte actually in our big RAID that we still haven't filled it up. So I'll wait to fill up those drives before too long. But the performance on it so far has been really amazing. And that's one of the things that we're going to offer in our Nimbus Cloud implementation is you'll have access to some of these things to do training and to be able to do the things that we need to do training wise most of the time is just give people access so they can punch around and break it. It's a virtual machine. So at this point, you can break it all you want, and I just hit it reset back and then start all over again. And a mutual friend of ours, Guy, and I've talked about this for a long time about giving the ability for people to like you said, you may not have known OBS well on a Mac, and yeah, the common knowledge of most of our people that we frequent friends wise, they're like, no, don't ever use it on a Mac, but sometimes you got to. But that would be something that we could do because I've got a couple other Macs too, and so whenever we are deploying this in the future, that's one of the things I was going to expose some of our Macs also, so that people could run on that platform. If you're not familiar with it, you don't have to worry about buying one or stealing one from a friend or something like that. But that was one of the things. Yeah, so there's backups. Andre was asking, do I have a backup to the server with all the virtual machines? Yes, there's a backup on the server to another server. And so we've snapshotted that whole VM structure, but then at the same time, each one of those virtual machines inside that server, those are also being backed up, and they're snapshotted. So we can actually, the whole thing's built upon a RAID. So the RAID is a backup, but we also have the whole thing snapshotted too. With this type of the hypervisor we're using, everything, we could actually do a cluster also. So we could actually have it sharing between multiple machines. And whenever I get some extra funds and some just play money to throw at it, I'll buy a couple more of these Dells and do that too. But they're not super expensive, but what you can get out of just one box that's that big has just been amazing to me. Now that we're over the GPU hurdle. Now, granted, this is a I think think it has 3 cards that we could put into it. It has dual 10 gigabit NICs on it, and then there's 3 slots that we could put in GPU. So there's a limited amount of how much GPU power we can put in it, and it is limited also in the size of the card. We're using a A1000. I could probably put a 2000 into these slots without any trouble, but right now it's just an A1000 in there, Quadro, NVIDIA Quadro. But it's pretty interesting to see that's coming around. So hopefully we'll be able to see a little bit more in maybe 2 weeks. I'll be able to show everyone and kind of show how it's implementing in our setups so that you could be signed up on the beta list, and we could give access to it to people that wanted to kind of learn the product without necessarily having to invest in the hardware or dedicated systems and stuff like that. And yeah, the more people we can get familiar with it, the better. That's the way I look at it, in building the systems and using the systems. The more you can punch at it without being in a show situation that you can't break it. And I've got all kinds of inputs that I could throw into it off of our processing engine. So you could literally cut a show that's live content, as live. Now, it won't be live, but it would be as live. So you could really get a feel about, how things flow together, and building graphics and things like that on top of it. Instant replays or another part of that we're adding in. So that's kind of some of the newer stuff that we've been working on. It's good to see that big breakthrough that been working towards in a long time, and just all of a sudden it just all clicked together, and then it's cool. I came in this morning, like I think I mentioned earlier, as we had a power outage last night. The whole grid in this area went out. So I came in this morning, and it was still running. And so that made me feel really good, because I knew half this other stuff was not running, and I was having to reboot machines and reboot UPSs. But that was one of the things. It's it was still just a screaming away. It's a loud server. So that's one reason it's way down there in the other end of the hall, way away from my ears, because I can't stand it. And whenever we have the same one in a truck, we have it in our container build. It's in a silent box, and it knocks it down by about 30 dB. So it's manageable to talk over it, but you can't stand next to it when it's running, because it's just loud, super loud. But great to be in a machine room somewhere. But anyway, the future looks really intriguing, and thanks, Andre, for mentioning that. Yeah, hopefully we'll have a structure laid out before too long, and we're basically using our authentication and our role assignments and things like that in Nimbus to be able to handle some of this. So we'll be able to give people some keys and let them break things, and then if it break it, so what? We'll just put it right back and make it simpler. And so that's basically it, Jack. I'm glad that you were able to make a solution to your big challenge that you had. I hope that you were not too stressed out. It's not like you had hair to lose or anything like that, right?
Nah, no hair to lose.
Again, I can relate. So whenever we get a chance, we definitely need to get together again. I'm not coming west for quite a while, probably, it looks like, in the schedule. But I look forward to seeing you on a pathway down the road, and or maybe we just end up in a forest somewhere, and we could do this all over again and
There
give
you
it a
go.
shot. Yeah? How about that?
Yeah. San Antonio, how far is that from you?
Oh, 4.5 hours. Yeah,
Okay.
it's right down the street.
Yeah,
That's where Newtek was based. And so I would go down. I would wake up on a Tuesday for a meeting for 1:00, and I would wake up in the morning or a little earlier and just drive over there, and then drive back that night after dinner with the team over there. So yeah, I know San Antonio really well.
Yeah, I'll be headed out there soon. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have to get together for sure. And we could go get some Rudy's. Ooh,
I love Rudy's.
Rudy's, the originals there, down in Leon Springs. That's the
That's
place
good
to go.
stuff.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank everybody for watching, and that's going to wrap it up for another episode of What Makes It Tick. Appreciate your attendance and viewing. And if you would, go ahead and do that thing where you click you subscribe and all that kind of thing. It helps, makes the numbers, and eventually we're going to explode. And it's just going to be huge, right? But I don't care really. I just love that we have a way of talking with friends and helping out, and hopefully we can help somebody else out there, and you can become a new friend. And that's all we're about now. So if you have some production questions or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the chat or shoot me a message. I'm on Discord. It's Jeff at Pizzazz on Discord. You can look it up. Jeff, I spell with one F because I only have one F to give. So I appreciate you guys all for showing up and watching, the gals, and we'll see you again next week. Probably we're going to be back in time to do the show on Tuesday. We'll be traveling because we're going to be doing racing this weekend for the finals being on Monday for some weird reason. So we'll be traveling Tuesday, but I'll let everybody know in the Discord whether or not we are going to have a live show or not. But thanks you all for watching, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate you coming by.
Absolutely. Take care.